Good morning, students. We have been looking into the chapter of thinkers, beliefs, and buildings, and we today come to I think this is the last that is covered about Jainism in this chapter. Of course, there's much that could have been covered, but I think they have given a greater emphasis to Buddhism than Jainism here in this chapter. So, coming to the last part of it, that is the spread of Jainism. That is 3.1. Gradually, Jainism spread to many parts of India. Like Buddhists, Jain scholars produced a wealth of literature in a variety of languages: Prakrit, Sanskrit, and Tamil. For centuries, manuscripts of these texts were carefully preserved in libraries attached to temples. Some of the earliest stone sculptures associated with the religious traditions were produced by devotees of the Jain Tirthankaras and have been recovered from several sites throughout the subcontinent. Students, I have, though these are two small paragraphs, but they actually demand a great amount of explanation, but I'll just try and keep it short. Gradually, Jainism spread to many parts of India, and particularly the wealth of literature available in Prakrit, Sanskrit, and Tamil. Students, Prakrit is a language which is around central India, and it has been derived from Sanskrit, but then so is Tamil. Okay, so Sanskrit happens to be the fountainhead of, if not the mother of, the fountainhead of a lot of Indian languages. So you have to understand that there would be in all the languages somehow or the other have taken and inspiration from there. Now, but what I'm trying to say is the reason why there's great amount of Jain literature available in a language like Tamil is because Jainism had spread to many parts of South India, and I have said in one of my videos that Chandragupta Maurya, I think it was yesterday itself, Chandragupta Maurya, the first Mauryan ruler, yeah, he had embraced Jainism, and after he felt that he had done enough of ruling, he gave his empire to his son Bindusara and retired to South India. And after accepting Jainism, and he spent his life, in the service of Jainism, and at the end, he died out of starvation. So that there is a Jain method of starving yourself to death, and it is believed by historians that that was the option which Chandragupta Maurya accepted and exercised. Now, so you can understand that Jainism was very influential, though it had a very harsh and a very hard way of living, and they had very kind of strict rules. Then that is the reason why you do not see that kind of spread the way Buddhism enjoyed. And now some of the earliest stone sculptures associated with religious traditions were produced by devotees of the Jain Tirthankaras. Guys, the Jain Tirthankaras, that is their greatest teachers, as I have again mentioned in my this video for this chapter, is that the Mahavir we know about Vardhaman Mahavir as their greatest Tirthankara, but then you have to understand that he was the last one. He was the 24th Tirthankara. There have been, as per the Jain traditions, there have been 24 Tirthankaras, and Vardhaman Mahavir was the last one. And the first one, I have again said yesterday, was Rishabh, who is considered to be dating back to in the Indus Valley civilization. So the first one was Rishabh, and the last one was Vardhaman Mahavir. So naturally, different Jaina Tirthankaras in different parts of India, and of course in those years, even present day Pakistan was considered to be India, present day Bangladesh was considered to be India, and a huge part of southern Afghanistan was very much in the Indian backyard, if I may call it. So you have to understand that naturally, when you had 24 Tirthankaras, then definitely a great amount of Jain literature and Jain religious literature would naturally be scattered in different parts of the country. But one thing you have to understand, students, that there are 4 or 5 very, very illustrious Jain Tirthankaras. Okay, so they're very famous ones. And so Vardhaman Mahavir, all of you know about that because he was the last one, and Of course, Rishabh, I've been kind of harping for the last 3 4 days. But then you have to understand there were I think there are 24, and out of those 24, there are three other major ones. Rishabh was one, then Neminath was one, then Parasnath was one. Yes, but Parasnath was in fact the 23rd Tirthankara, the one just before Badman Mahavir. And if you actually go to Jharkhand, there is, and especially if you go by train, there is a railway station, and the name of that railway station is Parasnath. Okay, and it's a great center of Jain pilgrimage. You would see, and there it's a completely mountainous area, and it is you would see that a great amount of Jain pilgrims from around the world, not just in India, but around the world. They take a stop there, and they spend a great amount of time in Parasnath, because they have temples for all dedicated to all the 24 Tirthankaras. Okay, because it's a completely hilly terrain, and every hilltop has one temple dedicated to one Tirthankara. Okay, and it takes at least a month to completely cover all the temples. But there are five and four major ones. As I said, Rishabh Nath, of course, was the one. Then Nemi Nath was one. Then Parasnath, of course, then Vardhaman Mahavir. And there's one very interesting, which immediately kind of hits my head. And interesting because, this Trithankara is considered to have been a woman, and her name was Mallinath. Okay, I think she was the 18th or 19th Trithankara. Okay, her name, and she was a woman, right? Because she had achieved that kind of skill and greatness that the Jains did not have an option but to regard her as and honor her as Trithankara. But then there is a catch here. Now the catch is, if you know, I don't think it's mentioned in this chapter. Jains are divided into two parts: the Shvetambara and um, Digambara. Right? Now the Shvetambaras and the Digambaras. Now the interesting thing is that Digambars believe that Mallinath was a man. Okay, so for the Digambara tradition, as per the Digambara tradition, all the Jain Tirthankaras were men. Okay, but for the Shwetambaras, it's them who believe that Mallinath was a woman. Okay, her name probably was Malli Bai or something like that, and then she was ordained as Mallinath. Once she became a Tritankara. So this is a very interesting thing, because the only woman. By certain accounts of the Shwetambaras, of course, who was a Tritankara. So now we start the Buddha and the quest for enlightenment. Now, one of the most influential teachers of the time was Buddha. Now, that is something which we all know. There are no surprises here. So, over the centuries, his message spread across the subcontinent and beyond, through Central Asia to China, Korea, and Japan, and through Sri Lanka across the seas to Myanmar, Thailand, and Indonesia. So, how do we know about the Buddha's teachings? These have been reconstructed by carefully editing, translating, and analyzing the Buddhist texts mentioned earlier. Uh, Historians have also tried to reconstruct details of his life from hagiographies. Now, right next, there is a box which tells you what a hagiography is. Hagiography is a biography of a saint or religious leader. Hagiographies often praise the saint's achievements and may not always be literally accurate. They are important because they tell us about the beliefs of the followers of that particular tradition.